Welcome to A Moment with Modern Mentors.
Shamgar, the CEO and co-founder of Shouta, which is a world-first micro-gifting app that lets you shout anyone coffee, drinks, or anything else as a token of your thoughts.
It's so great to have you chat with me today for a moment with Modern Mentors, a call for change. We're all about change this season, and you are the CEO and co-founder of Shouta, a new kindness concept and digital micro-gifting platform for the modern gift giver. You're disrupting payments and the gifting sector all in one go, and we can't wait to hear all about how you landed this awesome role and the path you're on. So tell us. Welcome.
Thanks, Mia. Well, I'm super excited to be chatting to you.
Yeah, we are too.
Where to start?
Yeah.
How Shouta was born.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about how you came to be the CEO and co-founder of Shouta. That would be the great place to start.
So look, I guess I've been in the tech startup space for over a decade now. So after a background in corporate and media sales, which after moving into that sort of tech startup world, I guess I was kind of hooked. Bitten with the bug, that's for sure. And I've actually been involved as an investor and a founding member of another startup, which I was very fortunate to go from the very sort of infant stages of the idea right through to a successful exit and taking that business overseas to both the US and New Zealand. So that sort of that really got me hooked then into the startup world, having sort of seen it through all of those phases. And I just knew that wouldn't be my last one, that I, desperately wanted to build another business and do it all over again. But I really wanted the next business to be something that resonated with me as a person, and I guess with my own personal values as a human being and also as a mum. And it was just fortunate that I happened to meet my co-founder Nick through some startup circles, and we both had this common theme, I guess, of being originally not from Australia, even though we both lived in Australia for me most of my life now, but we still both have very good friends and family living overseas. And for us, there'd always been this issue where we wanted to touch base with these friends and families in beyond just a text message or phone call kind of way, and actually send them a token of our thoughts. Always just very expensive. So that would always be, sending flowers or hampers, which is $100, $200 plus. And we just thought that, surely there must be a better way to just be able to send someone a token of your thoughts. And that was really where the idea of Shouta came from.
Fantastic. And so, tell us a little bit about the timing of Shouta, because it's really recent that you launched, and you've already had quite a propelled success, obviously, through COVID. But give us a bit of background on kind of what was the stepping stones to launching.
Yeah, so look, I guess in the first instance, it was about both of us sort of resonating with the problem, how the idea started to take shape. We actually started the business and working on the business just before COVID, about a month before COVID hit, but it really, I guess, kind of took shape and formed over lockdown. Crazy year that was 2020. So we've been working on the business for just a little bit over a year, but we've only been live in app stores since December. And it's fair to say, I think, that COVID really did sort of solidify the fact that there was really a need for a micro gifting app like Shouta, because it became evident that there was never a time more than then, where you just wanted to be able to touch base with family members and let them know that you were thinking of them with a little token of your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, for someone that totally has never heard of Shouta before, maybe give us a little bio, and then maybe just talk us through how it actually works.
Sure. So Shouta is what we call a micro gifting app. So it allows you to shout anyone in Australia at the moment a token of your thoughts. So you'll be able to shout them a coffee, drink, or anything else. So little gifts that start at $5, and you shout it as with a message to let someone know that you're thinking of them. So we're really all about life's what we call mini moments. So it's all those moments such as when you want to say thanks, I miss you, cheer up, congrats, all those kind of mini moments where you want to just do something beyond just sending a text or an email, and you want to just sort of punctuate it with a little inexpensive gesture. That's
beautiful. I mean, it's just such a great idea, and such a nice way for people to have a reason to connect as well. And I mean, tech-wise, so you said that you've been in the app stores since when was that? Halfway through last year?
No, it was actually only since early December of last year. So
okay. How did Shouta work before the app?
So we were just working on the business and setting up all the behind the scenes. So I guess what I always say to people is Shouta, simple concept, not such a simple back end to the business and all the workings behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, the app is so simple to use. I mean, it really is just download, and then you can simply kind of put some credit on and shout that coffee. I did it for my husband actually the other morning. He was very pleased with himself. But of course, building an app that's simple to use is, like you say, probably not that simple. So how did you had you built apps before, had been involved in building apps? Like, how did you get involved in doing that for Shouta? And still seems like, getting it launched in the App Store by December after a fairly short concept time has been pretty big achievement.
Yes. Well, I was very fortunate that in my co-founder, Nick, he has been developing apps for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So that really helped. And he also has quite a strong agency background. So he's really very good from the design perspective, which is so super important to, a very sort of heavily consumer facing app like Shouta, because it really is all about that experience of going through the app. So that was very lucky. And we were able to sort of take our pain points of the issues that we were facing with this not having the ability to send these cheap little gestures to friends and family, and then rolling that up into all the years that Nick has had with design and building apps, and I think we've landed on a pretty cool product.
Well, it'd be great just to understand a little bit more. So you're co-founders with Nick Redwood, who's your CTO. You're the CEO. When you came together, had you known each other for a long time and kind of land on this, or was it quite a recent meeting and it just worked? Like, tell us a little bit about how you became co-founders.
Yeah, so look, we met through startup circles. There's quite a lot of networking and startup circles in Sydney and Melbourne. Nick was actually in Sydney at the time when we met. And I guess, we initially first connected over this shared problem. And then we just sort of started bouncing ideas around with each other. But then we also obviously had to get into the more sort of serious conversation, just, to see if we would sort of mesh as co-founders, because we didn't know each other before, which is quite a different experience for me. Last business partners, we had actually worked together before for about 4 years and become friends. So it was a very different experience. So Nick, not knowing him and not knowing his working style or even just him personally. So that has been very different. But I guess we asked the hard questions, and what our goals were, what our we did talk about working styles and all those kinds of things. Actually, we came across a really good sort of 20 question checklist to go through when you meet a co-founder that you think you might want to work with, and that was helpful.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, maybe you can share that with me afterwards, and I'll circulate that.
I think that it's quite important to sort of go through those questions and make sure that you're sort of aligned.
Yes.
And then we took the plunge.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. At some point, I think with some of these kind of situations and relationships and opportunities, sometimes it just is a bit of magic that happens, and you've got to go with your gut instinct that this is the right thing. You can do all the preparation and the due diligence, but at some point you've kind of got to leap in with a bit of trust. Did you have that same situation, or were you kind of very analytical about it, or was there a bit of okay, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel pretty certain?
Look, I think that's the nature of startups. Yeah, I mean, there's so much unknown with startups, and everything to do with a startup is a little bit of standing on the edge of that waterfall and holding someone's hand and jumping overboard.
Yeah.
That is kind of, but that's actually what I love about startups, as opposed to the structure of corporate. So yeah, it is a leap of faith, and I am actually I can also be quite a cautious person, but it's and so I think the due diligence is important, and it is important to do the research. We did quite a bit of research before we sort of went out and started building the app, and we spoke to people to see if there was if they were even interested in sending little gifts for life's mini moments, as we've sort of coined it. And you do have to do your due diligence and research, but then yes, at some point you do have to take that leap of faith as well, and just go all in.
Well, actually, while you're saying that, I was just thinking to myself, so what research, what came back from the research, and what told you that this was, a good endeavor?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing that sort of really struck us is that so many people have got friends and family spread out all over the world, all over Australia. So, and while at the moment you can only use Shouta to shout someone a gift within Australia, which is great, it's still the ultimate aim of Shouta is to be gifting across international borders. That was the initial dream of Shouta, and we're still working towards that. But it really struck us how many people have got friends and family sort of spread out everywhere, and everyone wants to keep that connection with them in a meaningful way, but also bring a little bit of fun to it as well. So that really sort of came across, and also just sort of testing out those moments when people were wanting to sort of reach out to people, and also understanding what the common pain points were with gifting at the moment. So the fact that at the moment you can't really gift something instantly, you either have to wait for postage, or interestingly, gift cards came out as a very much loved gift of choice, actually, amongst many people, but there were pressure points around gift cards as well. The first being that they came across as a bit impersonal, being that they were very much tied to specific retailers. So we really sort of took all of those learnings and made sure that when we built the app, that first and foremost you were able to give something that came across as personal. Even though you're doing it through an app, you're able to sort of customize the experience of giving the gift. So you can add a selfie or a GIF, you can add a personal message, and then also making sure that when you receive your shout, that you're able to redeem it anywhere you like, and not being constrained by certain retailers or venues. So when you actually send someone a shout, what you're sending them is a digital prepaid debit card, a MasterCard, which they add to their digital wallet, and then they can just tap and pay for their gift wherever MasterCard is accepted.
Fantastic. So essentially, I can shout you a coffee, but at the end of the day, you could go and spend that $5 I've shouted you for a coffee at the nail bar.
Yeah, you could. But I think what came out from the research is that people want to wrap that, that it needs to be wrapped up as something. So the gift has to be as something. So whether it's a coffee, a meal, a movie ticket, whatever it may be, but you can also actually customize your own shout in Shouta. So you could really shout someone whatever you want.
Yeah.
Shout new t-shirt.
I'm sure that there's some funny shouts going on around the traps. What you kind of talked about this MasterCard debit card. So you're essentially loading up a credit on a MasterCard, and that goes into your digital wallet so that when you kind of double click on your phone, you can pay on the go. Is that right? So it's literally an instantaneous gift.
So when you send someone a shout, they receive an SMS from Shouta with a link to download the app. Or if you've got the app, you'll just click on the link and your shout will pop up. So what you'll see is the shout that's been created just for you. So the image and the message and the gift type of what it is and the amount. And then if you haven't yet added your Shouta MasterCard to your digital wallet yet, the app will kind of walk you through this in a very sort of seamless process. And you only need to do that once, because you only get one Shouta MasterCard, and every time you receive a shout, it's that same Shouta MasterCard that is topped up, essentially.
Yeah. Right. So you can effectively kind of be shouted and use your single. It's a new credit card or debit card that's added into your digital wallet.
It's not a credit card. It's a prepaid debit card. And
prepaid debit card. Yeah.
Because lots of people are quite averse to credit cards these days. So it's a debit card, prepaid.
So no one's going into debt. Everyone's got you can only spend what you've got. And so was doing a deal with, a prepaid debit card hard? I mean, you kind of anticipate that things like that would take a long time to do, and you seem to have got one up and running in less than a year.
Yeah, look, the payment space is a very interesting space. I mean, it's really an ecosystem in and of itself. So there was a lot of fast learning that both Nick and I had to do to sort of wrap our heads around this ecosystem that's really kind of permeating through everything all around us. But it's quite a fascinating space. Look, it was a lot of work to get that set up and running, and it wasn't without its complexities. I'll say that much. And
was it through contacts and networks that you were able to kind of make a swift start, or did you have to start literally finding the right person and working your way up? Was it?
I did have a good contact into the company that we are working with, which was great. But I did meet with lots of other companies as well. In the end, we decided to go with the company that we have gone with because they have a footprint globally. And as I said before, the goal with Shouta is that you'll be able to shout someone anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, it's an awesome application, and we're super excited to be working with Shouta to help grow the social following and launch a campaign with you, which is really exciting. We can come back to talking about that a bit later, but I just wanted to understand a little bit more about you. You say that you've kind of got a bit of a taste for being a startup founder, which is I can totally relate to that. But tell us a bit about your background and kind of prior to that, where your skills and I guess what your passions lie in to get you into this space and be ready to do a business like Shouta.
Well, my professional background was actually, I cut my teeth as a media sales executive back when newspapers and magazines were still the go, actually, before all of these things even existed online. So, and actually, I think that was one of the best possible backgrounds to have, because I got exposed to so many different aspects of business, from, first of all, selling. I think having sales skills is such an important skill set to have, no matter what industry you're in and what your role is. I think it's really important to know how to sell something. So I think, that was my background. I also worked directly with marketing teams for massive, FMCG brands, and that was really interesting, seeing that side of things. And ultimately, I stepped into the shoes of a marketing manager and marketing director as well. So it's been interesting to sort of sit on both sides of the fence. For me personally, I will just say, media sales, it's a very sort of cutthroat environment to be in, and it's very high pressure, and it is pretty cutthroat. And what I found over the years was that media sales wasn't very good for my soul. I've been a yoga practitioner for half my life now, so for over 20 years, and I spent a lot of time traveling around the world and traveling through India, and these were things that sort of were very formative for me as a person. And I guess I always really wanted to sort of work in a business or build a business that was kind of more aligned with my values as a person, and selling media space definitely wasn't it for me. So Shouta really is, there is some really strong brand values at the core of Shouta, which is all about, being thoughtful and being kind and giving and generous. And that really sort of sits very well with me. It's the perfect combo for me right now, putting, wrapping up the entrepreneurial startup-y kind of world with values that are important to me.
Oh, I just got goosebumps when you said that. It's really, it's actually such an amazing kind of culmination of different skills. Obviously your journey to get to that point of being in sales and marketing in FMCG, having all that experience, and then obviously layering it on top with your personal kind of, value system. It's just, it's really, you've created this, you've manifested it. Well done. And so, now that you're on this journey with Shouta, whereabouts in the kind of process of Shouta are you? You're only a year in, you've obviously got plans to move and grow overseas and kind of make that, I guess, a global brand. What does the next kind of 2, 3, 4 years look like for you?
Yeah. So look, right now it's about expanding and really sort of growing the brand across Australia. That's sort of definitely the objective, until the end of this year. And then depending on where we sort of land by the end of this year, I would love to sort of start expanding Shouta overseas. In the first instance, it won't be about that cross-border shouting, because there is some complexity involved with that. As you can imagine, it's moving money across borders, so it's not that super simple. It is doable, but it's not super simple. So in the first instance, it will be about creating Shouta in another region. So whether it's the UK and having it operating independently like Australia, and then eventually opening up the gates so that you can shout across borders.
And so what would be your next territory? Which makes the most sense? Someone who's having a hard lockdown.
Yeah, actually we were really trying to actually get Shouta off the ground while we were still in lockdown, because we really thought that it had this relevance in that, and we were looking at changing some of the shouts to be things like Uber Eats, or shouting Uber Eats, or even shouting someone toilet paper as a bit of
who gives the crap subscription.
So but we didn't quite get there. But look, I think we would probably look to probably look to the States. That was the journey that we took with the last startup, as I mentioned, that we were involved in. It was really sort of setting up the MVP in Australia and going to the States because things are so vast there.
Yeah. And what does that look like in terms of a business for you? I mean, does it mean you have to expand and kind of prove yourself in Australia first and then pitch to, investors? What does that timeline look like for you, process?
So look, we already have investors involved with Shouta. I mean, there was quite a bit of upfront expenses that we had with Shouta to get it up and off the ground. So we already have some investors, some of which are, really have brilliant minds that are involved in the business. And we're actually looking to do another fundraising round, which I'll probably kickstart that roadshow in June, July of this year. In terms of what it looks like to expand the business to the US, I mean, we're kind of fortunate these days where I don't think necessarily we would have to move to the US or do anything like that, but it would be it would just be about raising enough capital to go overseas, to have an impact overseas, to really get the brand out there and known overseas. America is a much bigger market than Australia. So I think it would, be wise for us to go there with, some decent dollars behind us so that we can get there and have an impact in terms of getting the brand out there and known.
And you said, you've obviously raised some money first round, and second round, you said the word roadshow. What does that mean for you? I mean, you're the CEO. Does it mean getting your deck out, getting your old media sales, walking boots on and stomping around to just talk to people that you know, or is it, a whole clean slate and you've really got to go and do the meet and greets again? How does that actually work?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. I mean, I guess I am fortunate because I do have that investor network from the previous business that I had, which is great. We also have an investor network through the investors that we already have, which is awesome. So it's not like we're starting, trying to bash down doors of investors from scratch, which is good because that can be quite daunting. But it will probably be a little bit of both. But hopefully with a lot of warm introductions from people that I know and investors that I know already.
What are investors looking for from Shouta? Are they looking at a 5-year growth trajectory? Are they looking for innovation? What kind of those KPIs that really push their buttons, and what works for you? You don't want to give the whole business away. You obviously have a balancing act to kind of make it all work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think typically what investors are looking for is obviously growth in users. That is key. And also it's not just about the number of users, it's probably also about the monthly active users, because that really talks to the stickiness of a product. But also to looking at probably, the money flowing through the platform, number of shouts that have been sent, all those kind of metrics that we're kind of laser focused on in the business at the moment. Investors will be, laser focused on that as well. They'll also be looking at future growth opportunities for the business. So we were also on the verge, hopefully this week, of launching Shouta Biz, which is our version of Shouta for the corporate space.
Cool.
So that's very cool. And we've got a few other things that we've got planned and all of that, which I like to call the sizzle. So about showing investors the sizzle and the potential of what's to come, as well as all the good stuff that's happening now.
Yeah. So really having, your work being done on Shouta app for consumers, and then a bit of a vision around what the future might look like and how exciting it is and how many things you've got up your sleeve. And so you have to tell us a little bit more about Shouta Biz.
Yes. So Shouta Biz was kind of always on our radar. We always felt, Nick and I, that Shouta had application to the corporate space for incentivizing and rewarding employees. But what actually happened was when we launched in December, and we put some stuff out on LinkedIn, had a lot of people that I didn't even know just pinging me on LinkedIn and saying, you know, I've got my hands on the app and I love it and I want to use it for my team or in the workspace. And what are you guys doing for that? And so we just knew after a lot of these messages kept rolling in that we needed to bring the build of that forward. And so that's what we've done. And it's basically Shouta, the app, but in an online dashboard format. And the main difference is that you can shout multiple people at the one time.
It's a no-brainer. As you're saying it, it's just like, of course, you have to have this. I mean, for the employer, it's just brilliant, isn't it? They can literally say, you know, happy first birthday to our business. We're giving everyone $100 on their Shouta app and everyone's rewarded. Or, you know, we've just had a sales win. Here's, you know, something nice for you.
Yeah, you know, Friday drinks on us. That's that thing. So it is pretty cool and we're very excited about it. I've probably got about 30 or 40 businesses that I've spoken to that are just sort of waiting, sort of emailing every day for it. So hopefully that goes live this week, which is very exciting.
So it's launching this week.
Yeah, we're just in just before sitting with you, Mia, we were doing some testing on the dashboard and just ironing out little bugs.
Amazing. Well, you heard it here first. Fantastic. Oh, that's really exciting. Now, one question I wanted to ask you around how you and Nick work together. Obviously, you're based in Sydney. He's now based in Melbourne. How does that work? Is that an easy? Obviously, everyone's very used to remote working over the last 12 months. But you know, from a kind of a CTO CEO position, what are the pluses? What are the minuses of that kind of situation?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, Nat. I think for the most part, we are so lucky these days. And also, dare I even say it, lucky because of COVID, really, that, you know, that has really sort of fast-tracked everyone's expectations of what it's like to sort of work more remotely or have work from home days and work over Zoom and all these things. But it's actually been absolutely fine between Zoom and Google Meets and Slack. It's been a really easy process. I do think, though, that there is something to be said about a team sort of, you know, being together in person as well. So we are going to try and, in fact, in a couple of weeks, Nick is coming this way, and we do want to try and make more of an effort to get together, you know, a few times in the year for big workshops or just some team building exercises that we do, because there is still something awesome about being in the same room and, you know, doing stuff face to face. But for the most part, it's worked really well, and there's been no issues. Thank you, Slack. Thank you, Zoom.
I hear you. We also run a remote team, and you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. For the moments and special times, it's great to see everyone, but it does work remarkably well with the technology. And I guess, you know, being a digital person and a digital business, you are just kind of adopting technology fast. So, and, you know, I guess I wanted to understand, you know, you've done a few startups and you've had a good long career in this kind of area of investors and startups and founding. But what are some of the things you've really learned? You know, what are some of your biggest learnings? And I guess if there are any regrets or lessons that you have, you know, if you had your time again, you'd probably do things differently. Are there any that stand out?
So one thing that I will say, and this probably may not make sense to a lot of people, because I think at the end of the day, when someone is going into a startup, everyone's looking, you know, maybe with the ambition of being the next, you know, unicorn or having that massive exit. But I can definitely say, hand on heart, that the one thing that I've learned over the years, and it's not just in the startup space, it's in business in general, is don't follow the money. Follow right. That is something that I've lived and learned, or been burnt by, I would say twice in my career now, where I followed the money and was really, really unhappy. And one of them, I was actually trapped in a pretty toxic work environment, I would say. And I stuck it out because of the money until eventually I'd had enough. But yeah, I really believe that if you do something that you're truly passionate about and just feels right with you, the money will come, especially if it's a business that you're launching and getting into yourself. It really has to gel with you. And your other question, what is my biggest regret? My biggest regret are those two occasions where I followed something for the money. Yeah, when I knew that and passed up on other opportunities which would have been a better fit for me. Money.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking, I think maybe it was off camera about just a gut instinct around certain things and just knowing at your heart. Well, I think it was at the beginning of the interview. We're just talking about, your instinct around things. And it's been something I've been thinking about quite a lot lately, is that you really have, your mind and your heart, but then at the heart of things, you do have just this gut feel about what's right and what's wrong. And I guess as you get older, you do learn to trust your gut instinct a whole lot better.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think I have this love-hate thing with money, because you need money to live, and you need money to be able to do all of these amazing things and bring to life all of these ideas that you might have in your brain. But I do think that it is really important to do something that ultimately resonates with you as a person, because it can really be quite soul destroying to be stuck in something that's just not right.
And like you say, you've got investors, they've got other people's money. So you've just employed a new person. Is that your first employee, or have you got a team already?
We're a team of 4. So yeah. I hired a lead developer. So Nick is the CTO. So he's, building and coding everything, and he really needed help, and we could do with about 5 more lead developers at the moment. So we have Brendan, he's our lead developer, and he's also in Melbourne. And then we've just hired a couple of months ago, a rock star marketing manager, Laurent, who's awesome, who is with me in Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's nice, once you start putting some stuff on and having some people also coming along for the journey, it starts to feel more and more real and less like it's all on your shoulders. Has that been a nice graduation?
Absolutely. It's so good. I think one of the things that I struggled with COVID and working from home was, the lack of being able to sort of brainstorm and bounce things, around a room. And it was just Nick and I, which was great, but it's good to have fresh eyes and fresh perspective. And yeah, I'm loving having Laurent on the team.
That's awesome. Now, a little bit about you personally. You said before you've got a child, I think similar probably age to mine.
I've got 2 kids. I've got 2 gorgeous boys.
Yeah.
Who are 10 and 7.
Wow. Yeah.
My little one, Gabe, he was only 5 months old when I started my first startup before Shouta. So that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's right. How to do that. And so how do you manage everything? And sometimes I've asked this question of working mums and entrepreneurs, and they the response is, well, that's just what you do. And I totally appreciate that. But in your process of life, working on a startup, founder role, juggling a family life, how do you kind of make it all work? Or is it just what you do?
Look, to be honest, it is kind of just what I do at the moment, because as I said, I've been in the startup space now for 10 years, and I launched, another business with a newborn, essentially. So it is something that I literally I've adapted to. There's been an evolution in my body and my brain where I have really sort of evolved to adapt to be, in a startup. I can definitely say that when I look back at the previous business in Shouta, my kids were at a very different age. They were much, much younger, and that was super hard, actually. That was really very stressful, and actually, my marriage broke down as well. And I do think that probably being in that startup hecticness was probably part of that as well, contributed to that. But now the kids are older, and my ex-husband and I, we actually have an incredible relationship now as friends. He's also actually an investor in the business. and things just work much better now. My kids are older, 10 and 7. They're much more self-sufficient. And I think we've all just sort of learned as well how to sort of compartmentalize time. They know that when the door's closed in the study, I'm working. They know they need to knock because I might be in a podcast or in another sort of meeting. And we spend good quality time together on the weekends. I've got a new partner who's very helpful, and a very supportive ex-husband as well, who very helpful, and parents and friends. So you do need to sort of build that little ecosystem of people that you can call on around you is one thing I can say if you're going to be building a business.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I can completely relate. I also had a very similar experience to yours, and like you say, it's probably for another podcast that we could talk about separately. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the getting into kind of out of the baby phase for one, but also into that supportive kind of situation where you have a routine and how it works a lot, a bit better, and you've got your kids are aware of how it works, and like you say, ex-partners and new partners can all work harmoniously, or as harmoniously as possible. Is definitely, you've done well to do all that and launch two businesses, so hats off to you. And like you say, the years kind of almost, I think, evaporate, don't they, quite quickly with children. But you have managed to do all of that, bring up 2 kids while launching 2 businesses. So I'm pretty impressed with that. And in terms of kind of the future and how, you're obviously bringing up your family as well as kind of bringing up a business. What does that all kind of look like? Is it a little bit of a mess, or have you kind of got a solid plan? What's your kind of personality like in that space?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm quite a type A personality. I do like my structure, and look, for me, routine is everything, as you've said. I think it would be very difficult to, sort of run a household and run a business without having, some semblance of a routine. So for me and for my kids are very much in a routine. I'm very much in a routine, and we do run a tight ship. But it gets to the weekend, and rules are out the window, and structure is a little bit more out the window. But during the week, it's
rigid. yeah, I know. Except at 5 to 9 when it's all like trying to get them to the school gate.
Yes, there are definitely those moments, like today, actually.
I hear you. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of the interview, and it's been amazing to chat with you. It's been so interesting hearing all about Shouta, but also about your journey to Shouta, and just as a startup that you've got big plans to take it to kind of like the globe. It's been so interesting hearing that process. And I know that will be super interesting to a lot of people. But one of the things we like to ask all our guests on the podcast is, what book have you read recently, or over the years, that has really moved you and you'd love to recommend to people, or you just feel like recommending on this podcast? That's one question.
So, look, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people come on your podcast and must recommend some amazing business books, and there are business books. my favorite book is not a business book. It's a book about life, and that is The Alchemist. And I read that book when I was in my 20s, sort of backpacking around India. And I can absolutely say that is one of my favorite books of all time. And it is all about creating your own destiny. And I think there's even a quote in that book which is about, you know, when you really want something and when your intention is right, the universe does all it can, or, you know, it conspires to deliver it for you. Something like that. Don't quote me.
Well, I think it's what we talked about before, that manifestation. You know, if you can make things happen if your mindset is focused on it.
If your mindset, and also if the intention is pure and true, and that really sort of resonated with me at the time, and it still sticks with me through all these years. And I just, even when I'm having, you know, these low moments or stressed out moments, I honestly always think of that book and that quote, and I just know that if the intention is there and the effort is there, then the universe does help to, you know, to enable things to go your way. And
I 100% agree with that. And actually, separately to that, I just wanted to, you mentioned before about your yoga practice, but does that come into play into your kind of routine in your life?
Yes, so my yoga practice is actually is on the back burner a little bit at the moment because I had a really bad back injury. But yes, I do my yoga practice still in my head. Resume the practice very soon. What I'm doing at the moment as well, partly also to get over the injury, is a lot of weightlifting too, which has been new for me, and it has been amazing. Exercise is very important to me, so I do that early in the morning at 6 a.m. before the day starts, and yes, it's very much part of my routine and very important.
Yeah, I think, you know, that kind of clarity of mind really happens for a lot of people when they're doing their exercise. It gets them feeling the endorphins flowing. I mean, we all heard the benefits of it, but it does feel like to a lot of people, if they can start the day with some kind of routine for themselves, starts off in a good way. And then the other thing I just, you know, wanted to ask you, and we do ask our guests, is if you had a megaphone and you could broadcast your message to the world, what would be that message right now?
It is, be kind, guys. That's all I can say. You never know what someone is going through. Even someone that looks outwardly happy, you never know what it's like to walk in someone's shoes. So just be nice and be kind. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's such an important thing. And really, like you say, I think almost the world has become super focused on that kindness piece, which is so amazing. You know, I hear my kids coming home from school and they're talking about kindness all the time. It's so nice. I wasn't brought up that, you know, with that kind of messaging as a kid, but certainly, you know, we're understanding it more. So thank you so much. It's been a beautiful podcast. Really excited to see Shouta just go from, you know, strength to strength. Awesome talking to you. I love speaking to female founders. So inspiring.
So much, Mia.
If you enjoy this podcast, subscribe via your preferred podcast platform for more episodes of A Moment with Modern Mentors.